Bro, how's
Yeah.
DC, man?
Um,
Can you feel the change? Is change afoot?
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go
Oh,
on.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I can feel the fear of every government bureaucrat in the district. Carrie Twigg, how are you? It's so perfect that I'm in this like cold brick whiskey laden cavern and you are in this LA blue. I see like I mean, I don't see them in the screen, but I'm imagining, you know, oceans and palm trees and
We're
life.
less than a mile from the ocean, I think,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. LA's great. It's so funny. We talked about this. Like, I was thinking about moving back to the East Coast, had
Yeah.
Kamala won, and I got back to LA and I'm just like, man, this is good living.
You're like, yeah.
I mean, a
No.
lot of support for RFK Jr. in these parts. I'm sure people are going to be hyped that he is. When I go to yoga tonight, it's like I'm going to hear a lot of people excited that he's the new HHS secretary. But aside from that, the ocean, see dolphins all the time. Yeah,
Oh.
sun is shining.
Okay. Well, there's that. You've got that. You've got your yoga class fired up. That's good.
I know, it's really bad. It's really bad. I mean, how's it going there though? Because DC is so interesting because it's such a small community and it's such an industry town that you really feel these changes quite palpably. Like I came back here and LA is so big and it's so sprawling and it's not a political city that is full of people talking about politics anyway. So it's not
Yeah.
as though like that's actually been the best part. Yes, it's the sunshine. Yes, it's the ocean. Yes, it's yoga, but it's also I'm now in an environment where no one's talking about politics basically ever, which is a different set of problems, but at least gives me a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I mean, well, as you can expect, it's the exact opposite here in Washington, D.C. Um, I've had lots of calls. I've had almost a call every day. Like I've had a heartfelt call every day since Tuesday, um, with a variety of different people who work in and out of politics or adjacent to politics, and there are just varying degrees of panic, varying degrees of anger, varying degrees of denial. It's almost like,
Ooh.
when you
Denial's a sexy one. I want to hear about
denial's
that.
a sexy one, but do you know like there's like the stages, the steps? I should know this.
Stages of grief, the 9
Yeah.
stages of grief or
Yeah.
7 maybe?
It's this it's
5.
is it 7 or 5?
I think it's
I don't
5.
It's 5
It's like
stages.
denial, bargaining, acceptance.
Yeah.
Wow, look at me go. And then it all
Go.
falls apart. And then I don't
Go.
know. Healing?
We're DC's in a collective grief, and I think depending on who I spoke to, there were in some stage of of things. The denial one was interesting. I think the denial one has been um more out of we've got a job to do, you know, like we're going to continue on and we don't have time to just say that we need to restructure anything. Um the headwinds
We don't have time to
or
say
the
we're going to
headwinds.
restructure anything as in the way that the Democratic Party operates.
Yeah, there is a little bit of
That's an interesting
an
take.
attempt at a Jedi, there's nothing wrong here situation.
Stop.
A little bit. A little bit. I mean, not a surprise coming from folks who are very close, if not in the White House. People who and in their defense, there were many headwinds, which we've discussed on our last episode. Um every incumbent party across the world got shellacked. And so this one was, you know, fell in line with that historical trend. But no, I mean, I am Mostly angry. That's where I'm at. I just want to speak for myself. I'm not sure where you are at because you're among, you're surfing and you're at the beach, so maybe it's it's hard to be angry.
It's not
But
really a Cali vibe. Anger is not really my Cali vibe,
I'm in the anger phase. I think I'm angry at America. I think I'm angry at the culture. I think I'm angry at our public education system. I think I'm angry at both Republicans and Democrats, which we can get into. Because here's the thing, this is a win not for Republicans. I do not want any single fucking Republican to claim victory from this, because this is uniquely Trump that won this. It's not about the Republican Party. This is about Donald Trump. And yeah, that's where I'm at. And I've been drinking a few. Speaking of, I'm drinking whiskey in honor of Carri Twigg. God bless you. I wish you were here.
Thank you.
Wish you were here.
I know. Well, I'll be there next week. I think we should talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I don't feel anger, and that might be just a broader issue of my personality that I'm
sure.
I almost never feel anger. It takes so much to make me angry, and this would be one of those occasions that would be justified, but it's just not an emotional experience that I know exactly what to do with, and so I feel like it's just typically not something that I opt for. I will say I'm sort of lying in wait, right? So part of me is like, conserve your emotion. This is a time for thinking, not necessarily a time for feeling.
Okay.
And conserve the sort of hot emotions, the anger, the fire, the passion, for when there's something clear to do, right? Everything about what we think might happen is theoretical at this point. Yes, he's announced his nominees, but like, they're not in their offices yet. They haven't started running roughshod over people we love and communities we care about. And so it's sort of like, that's going to come. I can't expend energy on that twice. Like right now I need to think about sort of what I actually experienced over the course of the last year, what I can make sense of in the context of, what we're seeing happening, what I want to do about it going forward. What are the things that I think are smart to build or to think or to do or to say or whatever. And all of that sort of requires clarity, and anger does not always bring me a ton of clarity. And I mean, I'm actually genuinely a little bit shocked. It feels like the fact that the Democrats and the left and sort of the progressive movement and all of it writ large is in need of some real soul searching. That feels unassailable. Like anyone who would try and say, no, you guys nailed it, and like there's nothing we could do. There were these headwinds. Like I don't know. I don't know. That level of denial is like, that is completely inscrutable to me. That makes no sense. We lost every single battleground state. Every major demo in the country went right, shifted rightward.
Except for two. Do you want me to tell you the two demographics?
Yeah, which two?
College-educated white people.
Uh-huh.
And those making over $100,000 per year.
Good thing we have so many of those people in America.
Those are the only two demographics that did not go towards the right this cycle.
Exactly. Not a winning coalition does that make.
I mean, it's a great demo if you're an HBO executive at Secession. If you're in entertainment, great.
Or consumer packaged goods, fantastic. I mean, what a disaster, right? You sent me that thing from Tom this morning, that Tom Bonnier legend, about black voter turnout going down in Georgia compared to 2020
dramatically.
I mean, it's just like, anyone who thinks that like this is fine and doesn't need to be taken down to the studs and rebuilt, like, send whatever you're smoking my way. We love that kind of thing here in California, but like, you probably
give me some of that. Break me off some of that shit. Yeah.
But like, you probably shouldn't be on it in DC. You know what I mean? Like, that's just illogical. And it's also one of those things of like, this is just good practice anyway. Every organization, every group, every party should be reevaluating and refreshing and evolving every cycle anyway. So it's not as though you should only be asking yourself introspective questions in moments of loss. You should be asking yourself introspective questions in moments of triumph as well. Like, how do you get better?
Great
How
point.
do you evolve? How do you continue on the trajectory that you're on? Like, all of this stuff is a practice and requires consistent input and growth and evaluation. And anyone who thinks that we are in some sort of moment where we should not be evaluating with a lot of rigor everything that has transpired over the course of the last 4 years, I mean, I just can't even, like, you're just not a serious person. Like, sorry, I don't care if you work at the White House. Like, you're not a serious person.
Just say it, Twig. I'm going to quote God bless you. I'm going to quote my father. My dad's going to love this. By the way, I don't think my dad has ever watched a single episode of this podcast, but maybe this is one I will send him.
I mean, my parents are probably in the low single digits. My mom especially, because she just can't handle the swearing.
It's the swearing. It's my fault. I apologize. I apologize to the Twig family.
She was really proud of you for trying to get it under wraps, though.
I tried, and then I just gave up. You know.
Well, there's bigger fish to fry, in fairness.
So, my dad was my coach growing up. I played all the sports. My dad played all the sports. Football, baseball, basketball. He was my coach for many of those sports. He's very bad at basketball, although he will not admit to it. So my dad would always say that when you win, what ends up happening is you don't actually take a look in the mirror of what you did wrong in a win. So just because you won, because at the end of a game, it's a team sport, you win, you're like, oh, we won, right? And you're like, we did everything right. But that's the time that my dad would be even more critical of what we did wrong. Because just because you won, it's like who you played against. You know what I mean? Like, if you played against a better team, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And I was reminded of my dad when going through all of the autopsies. I mean, I've read all of them. And I think the best autopsy, right, I would say the best sort of thinking around what led us to where we're at, Ezra Klein. God bless fucking Ezra Klein. It's spot on about everything. Ezra Klein should just run for president. He just
Honestly,
knows it all. But he wrote this really interesting thing, which was that the midterms kind of fucked us. It kind of fucked Democrats.
Oh, because it made us think that bodily autonomy was going to be a huge deal.
Yes. It tricked us into thinking that Dobbs and democracy were going to be the two number one issues.
Interesting.
And it rewarded us for thinking that the way that we ran those elections, which again, if we think about midterm elections are very different than a general election. It's just a different electorate that comes out to vote in those elections. The people that vote in midterm elections are Democratic Party diehards, Republican Party diehards. And if you just look at the math, Democratic Party, again, even this election, there are a lot of Democratic Party diehards. But what we essentially missed was we assumed that everything that we were doing as Democrats was right.
Yeah.
That we were great. That the gains that Trump made.
Everyone loves us.
Everyone loves us. Exactly. And also because the polling kept saying there was going to be this red wave. We convinced ourselves that we're going to get smoked. This is going to be awful. It's just going to be like Obama midterms, right? And then the miraculous thing happened, and that didn't happen, right? I think what we saw then was a continuation, right? The first step of the continuation was Joe Biden not stepping down because there was pressure on Joe Biden up until that midterm to step down. The polling didn't look good. He's getting old. People were like, look, Joe, this is great.
Yeah.
Time
Thank
to
you
step aside.
So much.
Thank you so much for your service. Time to
you.
step aside.
Yeah.
But when we really pulled a rabbit out of our ass during those midterms, Joe Biden was like, look, Look,
Totally.
bro, you need me. This is my jam. Look at me.
Yeah.
And so that was number one. And then number two, and I sent you some articles on this too, Twig, which was like, we sort of convinced ourselves that the way that we win is continuing to run the way that we've been running against Trump, which is, you know, bread and butter, social issues, bread and butter, democracy, abortion, freedom. And a lot of those candidates, at least from my perspective, I can't say this for a fact, they ran on those issues, and it worked. And so in defense of all my friends who worked on the campaign, who that was the evidence that they had before them, that was what they were working with. And the reality was that's just not where the American public was. It was not a midterm electorate. And Tom Bonnier could have told you that. So maybe you guys should have spoken to Tom about what the difference between a midterm electorate and a general election electorate. But anyway.
So you're bringing up an important point. And I was just with Ray and Nicole, my business partners in Culture House. And Nicole was like, "You're tough." I was saying something. I went on a little rant. She was just like, "Carri, you're tough."
Yeah.
And so I'm taking that note and applying it to this situation, which I think you're being incredibly generous to our friends
trying to
these
be
campaigns. Mm-hmm. In a way that it is that I have not been, and nor necessarily am I inclined to, and for a couple different reasons. One, you're just saying, you literally just said they did the best that they could, thinking they made the best decisions they could, thinking one thing and it actually being another. But if they'd talked to Tom Bonnier, he could have told them what the actual reality was. So it's not as though the information wasn't out there.
True.
Is all I'm saying.
True.
Like, our capacity for selective listening, it is worthy of indictment. And I think often we make this mistake, whether because we're losing or because people are our friends or because of whatever, that there's some sort of conflation, and especially in politics, where like so much of people's career is like them as a person.
Yeah.
And I have a really withering critique about the job performance, but it's not about people. It's not like I think any of these people are bad people or like don't want to be friends. But I don't think they did a good job. And I don't. But like I would totally invite them to my party. You know what I mean? Or like hug them if I ran into them in the street. But like
I'm making this too personal because also
a job.
I'm making it too personal. Also, I will also say, look, my wife is a member of the Democratic Party. She takes great umbrage and gets very defensive whenever I say anything negative about the Democratic Party. So I am also, and at the same time, my parents are Trump voters. So I am caught.
Divided house, a house divided.
No, I really am. Like a rock and a hard place, which is I can't really express how I'm truly feeling in my home in both ways. I can't say anything negative about the Democratic Party, and I can't say anything negative about Trump, but I internalize all of it. And the only reason I bring this up is because I think that the punditry has been so bad. I just want to say it. It's been so bad.
Tell me more.
It's been bad. I mean, I think Desi Lydic from The Daily Show did a perfect takedown of, if you turn on any of these cable news stations, they will just pick some random fact about why Kamala Harris won, or excuse me,
lost. Tricky.
Oh, my heart. Still wants her to win. Why Kamala Harris lost and why Donald Trump won, and they'll just run with it. And a lot of those reasons they were already the preconceived notions they had before the election. So they're just like picking some random thing, backing up their whole fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like their whole perspective on politics. And away we go. And I think that it's just a lot more complicated than that. I think that the two things I've really responded to was Tom calming everyone down on how big of a blowout this really was. Yes, we lost every battleground state, but when you came down to the popular vote, I mean, yes, we lost the popular vote to Donald Trump for sure.
I cannot tolerate. I'll let you finish. Please finish.
No, but here's the thing, Twig. We just need to be. We need to be on. I'm not trying to defend Democrats from this ass kicking, but I also do think that we need to be sort of clear-eyed about what is it that we really need to change? Because two things. One, Democratic senators did really good. I mean, think about the split ticket. Ruben Gallego won in Arizona. Tammy Baldwin won in Wisconsin. Slotkin won in Michigan, right? Like, Kamala Harris didn't win in any of those states, but Democrats did win. And the striking thing to me about going through those numbers were people were voting for Donald Trump and no one else. People were just, the number of ballots, there should be a whole breakdown of this because I think Nate Silver talked about this and a couple of other folks. The number of people who just put Donald Trump and no one else. I don't know that there's ever been a presidential candidate where people were just like, I'm just voting for this guy and fuck everyone else. Right?
Sure. And yet that's still an organizing failure of the Democratic Party.
Yes. Oh, totally. All I'm saying is that the feeling of we need to throw the baby, what is the term? Throw the baby out with the bathwater, or like, you know, everything that Democrats did was wrong. I don't think that we can say that when we did have pretty serious wins in the Senate. And we had folks like Andy Kim win. We had some serious wins. I think what we do need to do, in my humble opinion, what we do need to do is we need to not just place blame at the Democratic Party's feet. This is my take after reading everything, after going through all the data. I think that this is a larger issue. This is bigger than just the Democratic Party. I'll put it that way.
All right, let me hop in here.
Get in.
Let's be clear what the Democratic Party is in charge of and what it's not in charge of. What it's not in charge of is running Senate campaigns. That is the DSCC, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee.
Well, but when we say the Democratic Party, though, this is actually a great way to start here. When we talk about the Democratic Party and the DNC, do we include all of the committees? Do we include the D-TRIP? Do we include the DS? Do we include the redistricting committee? Because those are all technically umbrella organizations in the Democratic Party, no?
I don't.
You don't.
Because I think that because the DNC, having worked there and having worked at a state Democratic Party and like understanding how those things ladder up, the DS and the DCCC are like their own entity along with DGA.
Okay.
Like they pick campaign managers, they recruit their own candidates, they have their own PAC infrastructure, like they have their own consultants, they run their whole own thing. A Senate campaign does not consult necessarily with the DNC in the way that a presidential campaign consults and interacts with the DNC.
Right.
And so I think that the wins that people want to cite are not a credit to the DNC.
Okay.
They just aren't. And I also, this sort of goes to my other point, sort of in the individual context as well as in the, like, what did Roy say? What did Roy Wood Jr. say? Being down on your dick.
Down on your dick. That was going to be our first. That was going to be our first shirt.
Absolutely. The DNC, the Democrats as a party are down on their dick, right? Like they have nothing. They did not do what they were built to do, and that's fine. Maybe they could have done everything right and still lost because of headwinds, because Donald Trump is this unique figure. I understand that. But we know for a fact that they didn't do everything right.
Yeah.
And I think that this desperation to get away from rock bottom actually is incredibly myopic. There's extraordinary freedom when you have nothing left. You can take
There's incredible freedom when you hit rock bottom.
But truly, you can actually challenge old assumptions. You can break with convention. You can hire new people. You can bring in new talent. You can experiment with things. You can make bold choices. And to be so quick to run away from that position, I think is a strategic mistake. I understand midterms are 2 years away. The campaigns have already kicked off. I understand all of that. And to not make use of the extraordinary privilege of being an absolute loser is a mistake. Give credit where credit is due. I understand that like people want to try and frame this as though it wasn't some sort of phenomenal ass kicking. That makes no sense to me, but fine. If it makes you sleep better at night, go forth and prosper. But there's great opportunity, and to not avail ourselves of that, to me, doesn't make any sense. It's like
it was an ass whooping.
It was a
full on ass whooping. It was a full on ass whooping. But how do I think we have to, as Democrats, and even look at me. Like, this is how bad, the Democratic brand is. Like, when I started working for President Obama and I would talk to people, because I never really considered myself a Democrat before I started working for President Obama. I always thought of myself as an independent. I registered as a Democrat. My parents are Republicans. And there's something even back then that I was like, I'm not really a Democrat. Barack Obama obviously changed that for me. And I think many of us, I think millennials, God bless, like, can we just do a 2-second thank you to fucking millennials? God bless millennials. Because every other generation does not know what the fuck is going on in this country. Except for millennials. Like, millennials is we are become the greatest generation. We're the only generation that's getting more and more progressive as we get older. Do you see this line graph? I got to send you this, Twig. I'm like your dad. I'm like your dad. I'm going to keep sending you articles. Millennials were radicalized by Barack Obama, and we never left. We became Democrats, and we're proud about being Democrats. But I think where we're at right now, the thing that keeps me up at night since Tuesday, how many days is that? A week ago? I don't even know what today is.
Today's Thursday. The following, it's 9 days ago.
All of those demos, fine. We lost some Latino men. Okay. We lost the black vote in some of these battleground states. Okay.
Casual.
We lost literally everyone making under like $75,000 a year. Okay. We really lost people making under $50,000 a year. Let's just think about this too. The Democratic Party, our whole fucking point of existing is to fight for working class and lower income people.
Yeah.
That's our whole jam. That's the reason why we wake up every day and we're thinking of ways to build ladders of opportunity for people like myself and my parents who didn't have a lot of money to then live and build a greater life. And those people, the people making under $50,000 a year, people making under $75,000 a year, the people who do not have a college education said this to Democrats. They were like, fuck you. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I fucking hate Democrats. Everything you're trying to do, fuck you. I don't want it. I don't want any of that shit. So the part that concerns me the most are young people, though, because I think that anecdotally, I think that Trump resonates with people who've had this long history with Trump, right? They know him as this symbol of success. And he's like what a rich person is, and people aspire to that. And there is still this latent American dream that lives in the heart, soul of every American. But young people don't have history with Donald Trump. Do you know what I mean? Like, They didn't see Donald Trump in The Apprentice. They didn't see Donald Trump with Home Alone. Like, they're seeing this guy face value, Twig. And they're like, I vote for that guy. That's the guy I want.
But they're seeing him within context of the people that they consider validators, right? The Joe Rogans, the Logan Pauls, the Nelk Boys. Like, those guys are offering a lot of like authentication and credit. Like, they're vouching for this guy. They're giving him his cred. And so that's really important. It's interesting. I've actually had the opposite trajectory of you and be like relating to Democrats. Like, I was the political director of the Ohio Democratic Party for a long time. Like, Barack Obama did not animate me into politics. And this was one of the like rare distinctions that I had when you and I were at the White House. Like, I was one of the very few people who had actually been in politics.
It's why you hated me so much. You're like, fuck this guy.
Part of the reason. Part of it was really the volume. But I mean, just such a screamer. But of our age group, I was one of the very few people who had worked in politics prior to him announcing that he was running for president, or prior to him giving his 2004 speech. Yeah. And so I am almost like a Democratic Party institutionalist. And my mom's a social worker. My dad worked in insurance, but before he came to the United States, he was a math teacher. Like, my parents, we have a working class mentality, even if we're not working class anymore. And it was so obvious to me that was like, the Democrats were my party, of someone who's been obsessed with politics since I was 13 years old. There was no doubt in my mind what party I belonged to. And I've become less and less and less willing to be affiliated with, as a good proper millennial, less and less and less willing to be affiliated with the Democratic Party, because it does feel captured by corporations. And part of that was the Obama era sort of techno optimism that allowed Silicon Valley to sort of run rampant. But there has been a real move towards and even with the Bill Clinton administration, right? Like, from NAFTA on, there's an argument to be made that we have sold out working class people over and over and over again in favor to a corporatized elite. And that has not sat right with me. It's not made me a Republican or like a Trumper. Even it didn't even make me support Bernie Sanders. And I have felt a personal sense of disenchantment with the party infrastructure for a long time. The thing that's kept me in it has been like a commitment to LGBTQT, LGBT. What did I say that? LGBTQ, the commitment to people of color, to like coalition building around expansion of rights. Obviously, Dobbs is a major animating factor for me. So like, all those sort of social things have kept me in the party. But from an economic perspective and a working class identity perspective, I have felt, and like I talk about it all the time. I did all the labor unions. Like, they were not treated well. We did not treat industrial labor unions well in the Obama era. We just didn't. And over and over, it's sort of over and over again, we've been given opportunities to keep those folks in our fold, and we have not availed ourselves of those opportunities.
I was thinking a lot about you in looking at there were definitely exit polls of labor union households. And I believe that would probably include both industrial and service unions. But overwhelmingly went for Donald Trump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the piece that the autopsy stuff that has been resonating with me has helped me understand why Kamala Harris got blown out. Right. And the parts that, and maybe this sounds like excusing her loss, but for me, it's like, no, I really want to know why. And I do think that on paper, like, let's just be clear, Kamala Harris, although we love the idea of her taking over the helm, was not positioned well. just with her background, this is not an economic populist candidate at all. At all. This is someone who, her success in California was being a tough on crime prosecutor. Like, that was her claim to fame. Like, when I moved to California, that was her claim to fame, right? And it's clearly a history that she sort of ran away from when she ran for president in 2020, which of course came back to haunt her in this election. But if we're talking about, like, what were the primary motivations based off of all of the exit polls, which was inflation, just the cost of everything,
It's out of control.
It's out of control. Kamala Harris talked about groceries, but Kamala Harris, the one thing she could have done, this is the only thing I will say, because I don't want to be Monday quarterbacking. The one thing they could have done, and Twig, you and I saw it at the convention, which could have been so fucking beautiful, is when they started talking about Kamala Harris's record and taking it to banks that were foreclosing on people's homes that didn't deserve it.
Interesting.
When they were talking about her record taking on the banks. Do you know what I mean?
You're right. And we never heard about it again.
That was the last time we heard it. That was the last time we heard it.
Bro.
That was something that when I was watching in the audience, like the back of my neck stood up because I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, she's a prosecutor. She can take down these corporate elites. She can take down these fuckers that are like overcharging you, right?
Yeah.
That are keeping you from getting your American dream. Like, she's going to fight for you. And the whole idea of Kamala Harris for the people, this idea of for the people, was set aside. That for the people brand was set aside.
It was. I was thinking about that the other day.
For freedom. Because all these people came to her and they're like, here's how we're going to win. We're going to win with reproductive justice. So we're just going to talk about reproductive justice. That's all we're going to talk about. Yeah. And it was just the wrong choice. And with all that said, there also could be something to be said about the fact that, would people have bought it? I don't know. If she could have come out in that way out of that convention with that disposition, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm the prosecutor and I'm going to take down these big banks. I'm going to, like, there's no reason why we have not raised the minimum wage. There's no reason why, these big fat cats are not paying any taxes. Not to sound like Bernie Sanders here, but there was an opening for her to do a little bit of that. Even just a little bit of that. They just didn't do.
That's such a good call. I forgot about that. Well, and again, this goes back to one of the distinctions I'm trying to make here around individuals versus the party structure, right? Because she had, no matter how you slice it, she had 107 days, right? So it's also like
good point.
The point you made earlier around, like, people made the best decisions that they possibly could and did the best they could. In that context, I absolutely buy that and agree with that. They had 107 days. There's only so much you can do. You got to make a decision. You got to move and hope it's the right one, right? And she also didn't lose the working class for the Democratic Party in 107 days, right? And she wasn't going to win back the working class of America to the Democratic Party in 107 days either. And the Democrats should be able to sustain a candidate, even if it's not an economic populist candidate, because of the work they're doing 365 days a year the course of a decade.
Great point.
Versus the last 107 days of a presidential campaign. And I talked about this, I think, last time, like, the fact that we did not, as a party, take any, or the DNC did not take any meaningful tactic to bring in Bernie Sanders' coalition into the party, let alone Bernie, let alone having a chair that reflected the energy and enthusiasm that he brought to the party, the way that he expanded the party.
Yeah.
He built up this organic thing and this organic coalition of people who, because of our neglect, were low-hanging fruit for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And like, that's on the party. That's on the infrastructure. That's on choices that we have made in a sort of attitude that Democrats have had, that those people don't matter to them.
Yeah.
And they have done so at their peril over and over and over again. And it's sort of like, if those folks were actually in our fold, if we were communicating with them, if we were representing them up and down the ticket from state houses and to Congress and to the presidency, they had their president in Joe Biden. Like, Joe Biden is that dude. He was on the picket line with UAW and Sean Fain.
Yes.
Like, you can't ask for a more union-friendly president. We haven't had one in modern history other than Joe Biden. That should have been enough, but it's too little too late. And we did it. The Biden administration did a terrible job of communicating what he was doing for people in a robust way. And so you layer all of that stuff together, and it doesn't matter what kind of candidate she was. It's just like, these are problems that don't get solved in short time horizons.
100% agree.
And it's like, now is the time to like eat some humble pie and try and bring these folks, give them a reason to trust you again. Like, give them a reason to believe in Democrats again. The shit will hit the fan with Donald Trump. Like, Donald Trump does not care about anybody. We know that. And he's not going to be good at being president because he's not a serious person. Like, it's a hard job. He's not a serious person. He is surrounding himself with amateurs. And so the minute that shoe drops, if the Democrats are not there offering people a safe landing, or at least a vision for what they deserve that they're not getting, that is on us.
I look, preach. If I was a Gen Zer, I would have been going like this, or I don't know. What do you do? Yeah. So, all right. I feel like we can take this conversation in so many different ways, Twig. And the one place I do want us to direct our attention to, because we can get into the inner workings and mechanics of the Democratic Party and them listening to nonprofit groups and foundations and infrastructure and all that shit. But I don't think that that's what people... I don't know. I think the people that I've been so overwhelmed. I think we've hit now 400,000 streams of our podcast, which is incredible.
What?
Yeah.
That's so
I just
cool.
looked at it this morning because you were like, hey, we got to update this thing. I'm like, okay. Like, there is a hunger for people to know what's going on around them. And we're just not doing it. We're just not doing it. There's no intention or commitment or thoughtfulness around bringing people in and educating people on why this shit matters. And so there's a part of me that gets so angry at young people for voting for Donald Trump because of all of the warning signs of fascism. And when we throw out that word, it doesn't mean anything to anyone who's not read history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they just don't know what that means.
Right.
So and I think that's like a metaphor for everything that's happening right now, where we keep trying to enter a conversation with young people at a place where they just don't have the foundation to even understand what the fuck you're talking about. You know what I mean? And so my big worry right now, and there's been a lot of... I will want to... Wait. I got to say one thing, though. Every person who's been going on cable news and is just like doing this whole, like, you know, I don't know, just shitting on Kamala and shitting on Biden and like just like this whole... It's so easy to do this.
Right.
It's like, it's so easy. Like, fuck you, bro. Like, really? That's what you want to do? You want to go on network news and shit on Joe Biden? Like, that's great. It's like the easiest target.
Podcast.
It's the easiest target in the world to do that, right? Like, I'm gonna shit on Joe Biden. It's like, come on, bro. And like, same on the Kamala campaign, right? Like, none of you were saying shit the day before the election.
Yeah.
Silence the day before the election. But then after they lose, oh, you know what? I'm going to come in and we're going to say all this shit we didn't say. Like, fuck that. Like, fuck that noise. The one thing that I was alarmed with I read everything. I read every autopsy. Was Kamala didn't go on Theo Vaughn. Kamala didn't go on Joe Rogan. Kamala didn't go on. She was invited to many right-wing podcasts, and I wouldn't even call them right-wing. Like, they're not even really right-wing. Like, Theo Vaughn is just
sort
an
of
idiot.
Apolitical in the sort of,
Yeah, I mean, by the way, Theo Vaughn would say he's an idiot. Like, he would admit to it.
Totally.
He had Bernie on. He's had a number of people on. Because of staff. Apparently, there were senior staff who said, we can't have Kamala Harris on these podcasts because of the signal it's sending to, I don't know, Twitter? Like, what is a signal that you're sending by going on these podcasts?
That's the kind of gossip I want. Did they name any names?
They didn't say who the campaign staffers were. Okay. But the person who, God bless Jen Palmieri, who we used to work with at the White House, Palmieri was the one who said it. Palmieri.
Oh, okay.
Palmieri.
On her podcast? Or did she write about it in
I think it was a Axios or Politico piece.
Okay.
She had said she was pushing for it because she was doing Doug Emhoff's. She was like essentially running Doug's stuff. She was pushing for Kamala to go on Rogan. And what she said was there were senior staff, many of whom were young.
Interesting.
Who nixed it, who said, no, this is not going to be good because the staff doesn't want it. And so there needs to be there needs to be a reckoning. So when we talk about institutions, Twig, like that's the other part where I'm like, yes, for sure. Like there are a lot of people and a lot of systems, and there's a lot that we need to unpack. And there's no reason why Ford Foundation and OSF should also be doing grants to explain like what the fuck a union is, right? If you're doing all of these grants to all these different organizations for every race, religion, creed under the sun, why aren't we doing that same level of investment for labor and for working families?
I've tried to get that grant. Do you remember that video where fucking asked me? That amazing YouTube video. I'm obsessed with that.
It's my favorite video.
I've actually tried to get a grant to be like, let me make some cool stuff about unions. Because people, to your point, don't know what unions are. And, in the words of Joe Biden, they're the only thing stopping the barbarians from breaching the gate. Like unions are so important. I want to say something about the youth. The youth dem.
I think we got to go in on the youth because I'm pretty upset at the youth. Speaking of anger, go.
Okay. Well, I was actually about to say something that you might not like, and that might be controversial and is based on nothing, but in my youthful way, totally based on vibes.
I love it.
Okay. Yeah, kids don't know what fascism is. I get it. Aside from like the uptight ones who wore suits to high school, of which there's one in every school. Oh dear. One in every school, but
wear a
like,
turtleneck.
Stop it. Under your suit.
I would wear a
like
turtleneck.
Voluntarily.
Yeah, and I'd like wear a blazer. My mom dressed me. Maybe not high school.
In high school?
Not high school.
Honey.
Not high school. Oh man, this explains my love life. Yeah, this is turtleneck vibes, Twig. Turtleneck
No,
vibes,
I mean, but like I was always a nerd and a political nerd, but I was a cool one, right? Like I would read at parties, but then also play beer pong and do keg stands and like run around and be violent and stupid, but was also like reading the newspaper. But I've always been cool. Anyway, but here's the thing. So young people basically have one job in society, which is to be like radical and unreasonable and naive.
True.
And to experiment and to like make poor choices. Their brains are literally not formed, right? And so young people are going to do what young people are going to do. You got to let them do that. And to be fair to young people and their enamoring, like what do young people want to do? Like what's the top of the majority of young people's list of stuff that they want to do?
Be an influencer?
Like have a good time? Right?
Oh, I thought you meant career-wise.
Yeah, well, like they want exactly uptight. You wore a turtleneck under a blazer. Of course, you think I'm talking about my career. No, they want to have a good time, probably make some money, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're presented with two options for president.
True.
Say what you want, but Donald Trump is obviously dumb, but he seems fun as hell.
Yeah.
Like you hang out with Donald Trump, you're gonna have a good time. You're gonna be in like a golf cart. There's gonna be people coming and like throwing money around and giving you a bunch of compliments. You're gonna get to read some classified documents.
There's gonna be porn stars.
Absolutely, the hottest hookers you've ever seen. I mean, like you're gonna have a ball. No one cares about ethics. People are telling dirty jokes. Like we love a little, So I actually, for young people, I don't think it's mystifying to understand Donald Trump's appeal in contrast to a Kamala. Like Kamala's really cool and she's interesting, but if you're 22 and you are, or 21, you're a college student, it's just like, she seems real. It's like, oh man, that seems really serious.
Yeah.
And like, it's not their job to understand the gravity of the American presidency. Like they don't understand the depth and the scale and the fact that the American government is the single largest institution in humanity, like ever created, ever conceived, ever operationalized. It is the number one sort of pace setter, wave maker in the world. Its breadth, its scale, its reach, its sophistication. That like a 21-year-old can barely comprehend what that means. And so they're going on these really kind of superficial, surface level decisions. And of course, a ton of young people are very serious and very engaged and have their issues. And I'm speaking in generalities. But for the huge portion of young people who are not like dropped into a serious evaluation.
Yeah.
Right. And all the adults like them who are just like, Donald Trump seems great. Like he seems like high vibes. Like, let's hang out with that dude. And he's rich. Bet. Like that seems awesome.
I get it. I think that
I don't think it's mystifying. And I think Democrats, again, I think every major news outlet has written some version of an article about Democrats have lost the culture war. And it's true. Like we are not telling a compelling story. We're not talking about things like the fact that we haven't been able to either get all of tuition forgiveness across the tuition loan forgiveness across the line, the fact that we haven't actually made these commitments to community college, like how expensive college is insane.
It's insane.
The fact that like no young people are going to be able to buy houses, like there's all sorts of reasons from a policy perspective that we're not exactly driving forward like these great outcomes for young people. We're basically leveraging the economy today on the backs of young people in the hope that we like can magically pull $9 trillion out of a hat and fix deficits. Like it's crazy. And we're also not giving them like a poppy cool thing to hold on to. Barack Obama was cool and interesting, and you felt like you were going to have a good time if you were part of his thing. Same thing was true with Bill Clinton. Like it's a tired cliche, but like playing sax on Arsenio Hall, like dude seemed cool. I don't think
people. My big thing, if I had enough time in my life and commitment and and like if I can actually sit down and do, I don't think that people actually studied how Barack Obama won president. I think that Kamala Harris, I don't think that like Pluff was there and they kept saying, oh, Pluff like is running a Kamala Harris campaign like the way Obama ran. That was one of the big autopsies. It was like a brutal takedown
of Pluff.
It was just a brutal takedown in general. By the way, these headphones, this is so interesting.
Are they tight? It's not working.
I just looked at myself in the monitor and my hair just looked like, I mean,
you're crackly for me. Otherwise,
this
I would
is just
be
what my hair
keeping
looks
an
like.
eye on
It's just my life.
Sitch.
But no, there was this very false equivalency from these reporters that are probably 23 years old and weren't alive when Barack Obama ran for president. Much like many of the pundits that are on air that just like don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But there was this false equivalency saying, oh, well, David Plouffe is running the Barack Obama campaign for Kamala Harris. And that's just so not true. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not true at all. At all, at all, at all. Like, Barack Obama ran a campaign where he talked about every single day how he was going to make life easier for you because he's going to give you more money in your pocket. He's going to make things cheaper for you. He was going to give you a tax cut. He was going to it was so transactional in 2008. It was so transactional in 2008. And we forget all of that because when we look back, we're just thinking about the rallies and the posters and the Shep Ferry and like all this shit. Barack Obama ran very conservatively, right? Like Barack Obama, Twigg brought this up on the last, Barack Obama didn't run for marriage equality. Barack Obama ran
against gay marriage. Can you imagine?
He ran against gay marriage. Barack Obama, when it came to how he legislated immigration, which we talked to Jose about, Barack Obama was someone who understood at all times where the American public was. At all times. In my opinion, in my humble opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And he understood where the activist role was, which is to constantly push him to the left. And he understood what his role was, which was to continue to win and occupy power. Those are two different things, in my humble opinion. And when it came to issues like immigration, he was unafraid to talk about immigration. Kamala Harris did not talk about immigration one time. Didn't even bring it up. Kamala Harris did not bring up trans rights one time. Do you know how many ads were run on this trans shit?
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars were spent trying to pin her. I mean, very effectively, because the ACLU put this bullshit question in their questionnaire that she answered. So then people use that questionnaire against her for the rest of her life. Charlemagne, all these people getting her on the record, being like, why did you say that thing? And somehow the Kamala campaign thought that they can just ignore it. Completely ignore it. Completely ignore that comment that's being run. I was in Philadelphia. I saw you in Philadelphia. Then I saw my sister-in-law and my brother in Philadelphia. It was on in Pennsylvania every hour. I was in the hotel and I was got dressed, whatever. Constantly.
Yeah.
And did Kamala Harris mention it one time? One time to say these ads are misrepresenting how I feel about this issue. No, they completely ignored it. This is the thing, the sort of reckoning that's happening. The one thing about Barack Obama was you knew where he was on all the shit, and he wasn't fucking around. When it came to immigration, he was just this is why immigration. This is it. Yeah. If you are an undocumented family, and you want to come out of the shadows and become a citizen, you have to get to the back of the line. There are many people waiting to become citizens of the United States. We encourage you to do that. If he were to say that today, he would get flamed. He would get flamed. So my point is the things that we hid from Gaza, we talked about this when we were with Jose. We hid from Gaza. We hid from immigration. We hid from these bullshit trans ads. And there was enough confusion. There was enough Trump, whatever this dance thing is. There's enough of that.
I think it's a punch forward situation.
It's a punch situation. There's enough of Elon Musk. There's enough of all these bullshit people where people were well, yeah, I don't trust Kamala Harris,
Yeah. But here's the thing. I don't think those are apt comparisons to make. Again, she had 107 days. Barack Obama had he announced in February 2007, he had a full 2 years to run for president and had time and space to talk about everything that he wanted. I would nitpick the fact that Barack Obama always knew where the public was, I don't think that's actually true. I think Barack Obama had an incredibly optimistic perspective, and I think he often thought that if you talked to people and presented them with a case, they would make their own mind up, and in doing so would end up agreeing with him. And I don't think that he was right about that in a handful of different occasions. I think he we did not anticipate the advent of the Tea Party. And you remember Valerie would always say this all the time. She's like, the fever's going to break on the Tea Party. The fever's get like the Republican obstructionism. He constantly underestimated over and over and over and over and over again.
That Tea Party became the Trump Party, by the way. Like that all just folded right into.
Totally. Yeah. And he underestimated that over and over and over and over again and wanted to ignore it. And I can understand why in many respects. Like, it's complicated to be Black and white in this country, and to see that kind of racism is really hard to reconcile. And I think he wanted to reconcile it away, because when you're raised by both Black people and white people, you know that white people care for you too, and that they can be like this.
Yeah.
And so when you see them like that, it's tough to sort of not think that eventually they'll be like this, you know? But he constantly underestimated that. I think he was wrong about gay marriage from the beginning. I remember when Joe Biden said, you know, of course, Barack and I support people getting married on Meet the Press. I was with a White House senior staffer. We were in a car going somewhere, and they, to remain nameless, and they freaked out, and they're like, Biden just cost us the re-election. Like, there's no way Barack, like, he just ruined this. Like, you know, President Obama's not going to get reelected. He's a one-term president thanks to Joe Biden. And was like having this little meltdown tantrum.
Oh, you got to name those names. Fuck those people.
I'll text you. Jesus. He's still around. And couldn't have been further from the truth. People didn't care.
Wait, but I'll push back a little bit on this, because I think that when Biden was ready, Biden has really good political instincts. And I think when Biden said that, it was the right time to say it. I don't think it was the right time in 2007 when Barack Obama was running for president to say it.
Sure, but Barack Obama was not going to say it in 2012 either. Joe Biden pushed. It was August. It was like July or August. Joe Biden just did it.
People are dragging Joe Biden, and I just want to tell them to all fuck off. Because here's the thing. I never thought that I'd be the person defending Joe Biden. You all need to fuck off. All of you people, first off, clip this. We're going to clip this. First off, we're gonna fucking go here. First off, Barack Obama, 2-term president, first Black president of the United States. Carri Twigg has spoken very beautifully and eloquently about how this is the first time in modern life that you saw a grown-ass established white man be a Black man, public figure's fucking like sidekick. And he did that welcomely. He did that with grace and humor and love
and loyalty.
For 8 motherfucking years. He did that. What did he get from it? Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi being like, hey, bro, we owe Hillary this. Why did we owe Hillary this? Remains to be seen why. Our guy, President Biden, had a tragedy in his family. So he was like, all right, fine, you know? But that's some bullshit, number one. Number two, he runs all these people after Trump beats Hillary, when he was like, he was ready to run. He's like, I'm going to run for president. Every motherfucker in the Democratic Party, we had like 15 people, Twig, that ran. Everyone.
2020.
Corey, Deval Patrick, Julian Castro, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris. I mean, like Mayor Pete, fucking Tim Ryan, fucking Carri Twigg. Like, just name every person in America ran. And people were clowning Joe Biden the entire time. They were. They were like, he's so old. he's not progressive enough. He's not this. He's not that. He wins. And then fast forward.
Legislatively, the most successful president in modern history.
Yes!
I know.
Say it out loud. Say it out loud for the people in the back to hear. Legislatively, the most successful Democratic president. Period.
President in modern history. He's gotten more legislation passed than any president in modern history. Democrat or Republican.
Period. He's an old man. Yes. As we discussed in the beginning of the podcast, these midterms were coming up. Everyone kept saying it's going to be a red wave. Everyone kept saying Joe Biden needs to get the fuck out, move out of the way, let other people come in. What happens? Somehow the Democrats, and Joe Biden receives a lot of credit. Really, the credit should go to Nancy Pelosi, let's be clear. But Democrats fucking hold back this red wave. And so Joe Biden says, you know what?
Take another turn.
And here's a reason why, Carri Twigg, because up until that point, everyone kept telling him he can't win.
Yeah.
So he's built up this feeling of resentment and this feeling of like, these motherfuckers don't know. They told me I wouldn't win against Trump the first time.
Yeah.
That became Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They told me the second time that this is a young person's game. That all these young people of color are the future of the party. Well, crazily enough, black people are the people that really want me, not all these other people.
Yeah.
Prove them wrong 2 times. So what would make him think that he couldn't prove them wrong a third time?
No, I know. But I think it's against that backdrop that made him voluntarily not running again so remarkable and such a respectable and dignified thing to do.
I mean, when the numbers came in, which were rough, when the debate happened, it was rough.
I mean, the debate was a disaster.
The debate was rough. But again, I just want people to sort of like understand, because it's so easy to throw stones at this guy. So easy to get angry on your podcast, not to call out anyone specifically, to be like, oh, Joe Biden. It's like, motherfucker, like this man has served his country for his entire adult life. Yeah. And has done it really fucking well. And you also have to hold responsible all those motherfuckers around him.
Yeah.
Don't just blame Joe Biden, you know? Anyway, I'm getting fired up.
By the way, this is a real 180. Like you've taken every position, and I respect it. That's what podcasts are for, right? Who said there had to be any integrity to our opinions episode to episode?
Look,
but you have taken every position on Joe Biden, and I respect it. I'm here for it. I think that is
what
your
position?
right.
What other position did I take? I don't even remember.
Well, I think you've gotten a little hot about, he stayed in too long, or like if she loses, it's his, but it's okay. It's okay. All of it. Listen, when you lose this badly, there isn't one reason why. You know what I mean? Every single reason why is both true, and all the pluses are true. Like all of that is true about Joe Biden, and homeboy probably should have decided not to run in the midterms. And like, I get why he didn't.
True.
But,
we can understand why he didn't. And I also
doesn't mean it was right, though.
Doesn't mean it was right. Very good point. You can understand why someone did a thing, and it doesn't mean it was the right thing to do.
Totally.
The thing that I'm really fired up about, as you can probably tell, because I'm very fired up, guys, is number one, I love the way that Twigg we got to like take it down to the studs. Like we got to take down the Democratic Party to the studs. But I also don't know what that means, and I haven't seen anything. So there are a number of like meetings, right, Twigg, that the Democratic Party is going to be having with senior leaders, Democratic Party elders, super delegates. Do we still have super delegates, by the way? Is that still a thing? We still have super delegates. That's taking place in like a week or so? 2 weeks?
No. That's I think the ASDC. No, the ASDC meeting
Okay.
is the Association of State Democratic Party Chairs, and that is happening either right now or next week.
Okay.
There is a preliminary DNC meeting that's happening in December, and then there's the kind of elections of the party officers that happens in February.
Okay.
And then every state Democratic Party is going to be undergoing roughly the same process. So, I think.
How can, because this could be, to your point, we should view this victory, an optimist like you, because God bless you, are viewing this defeat, this ass kicking, this shellacking, this embarrassment of a loss. Fucking just destroyed with every demographic in every state. Just, you guys.
Yeah.
I think the only state that didn't go towards red was like Colorado or some shit. Carri, Twigg, you're viewing this as an opportunity to really clean house and, more importantly, bring people into the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can that happen? Because these meetings are not for the public, right? Or can they be for the public? How does it work?
No, I mean, there's both closed door sessions and there's open sessions. So there's sections that can be open to the public. But the reality is there's going to be a lot of power centers, right? So there's people who are, all elections are fundamentally popularity contests, and this will be no different. So there's probably people who are already starting to organize their campaigns and will try and build relationships if they don't already have them, or shore up relationships with the electors within the party, executive committee members, other officers, state party chairs and vice chairs, major donors, proving that they are the person to take the helm of the party.
So you're speaking of, just to clarify for people who are watching who know nothing about this shit.
New for, yeah.
You're talking about the DNC chair election, correct?
DNC
Is that what you're referring to?
Election,
yes.
Yep.
Okay, great.
And
our current DNC chair, which no one knows, which is again a fault of the Democratic Party, is Jamie Harrison from South Carolina.
Yep.
You probably don't even know his name because the Democratic Party does not do anything with their leadership and in communication or content or anything. It's a whole other conversation. But there will now be an election where many hats will be thrown in the ring. Ben Wickler's name has been named. Michael Blake's name has been named. Phil Murphy's name has been named. There are a lot of interesting, intriguing people that are throwing out their test balloons. And I'm very excited about this. But how can everyday people be involved in it, do you think, Twigg?
Well, everyday people should be involved with their county party or their state party. You got to bloom where you're planted, and it's get involved with your local things first. The national chair, it's such an inside baseball thing, and those relationships are so entrenched that there's not a very obvious way for the public to get involved. That said, if you, for some reason, have really strong feelings about who should be chair of the people who are running for chair or the type of person you want to see chair, there's ways that you can comment, social media, supporting that person, all of those things, telling your state elected officials, your state party representatives, that's who you want them to vote for. There's ways that you can do that. But I think the general public, it's much more, you should just listen. We lost everywhere. We lost everywhere. So it's not just in DC where these solutions need to take hold. They need to take hold in your state, right? In your community where you are. For instance, I'll be involved in the election of a new Democratic Party chair in Ohio. I love the chair there. She's great. And I think, again,
who's get into the specifics for all of our Ohio listeners.
Liz Walters is the current chair.
Cool.
But Sherrod Brown lost. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with being in these moments and turning it over to another group of people if you've been in the chair for a couple cycles.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily an indictment of her, you know?
Yeah.
But I would love to see a new executive director and team come in. And I hope this isn't hurting on anyone's feelings, but it's how I feel. And having been someone who has been at the party both when it had a sitting governor and a lot of elected officials on the Democratic and state level, and when we've lost everything and the party had to rebuild. Like, I've been there for both of those cycles at a state party. And again, that's what, like, it's not just some woo-woo that I'm like totally losing everything gives you an opportunity. I've lived it. I've helped build a state party from the ground up when you had absolutely nothing, when you were competing for state dollars, when you were competing for national dollars and attention and trying to get people to believe that it's possible for Democrats to win statewide in Ohio. And that case needs to be remade. Interestingly, it's all gone terribly downhill since I left. But it's like that case needs to be remade individually, state by state, as well as on the national level. And so there are central committees, there's executive committees, there's voting bodies that determine who those people are. They're going to be people like me who are interested parties who pick the candidate that I want to be chair and go and will whip votes and like will call the people that I know who I know can vote. I'm not an elector in this process. And give arguments about why I think that person should be chair in the exact same way that I would have for Kamala Harris, or you would for a traditional candidate or campaign. And so it's a pretty, it replicates the same, it's a process that replicates the same thing you see with like any campaign or any campaign for anything, whether it's student government or like, I don't know who else votes on stuff for jobs. I don't know. I've only really
like the
ever
Academy.
worked in
I don't know.
Yeah,
Entertainment.
Yeah, totally. Or like winning an Oscar. It's all the same stuff, or like winning an ESPY or MVP or whatever. So, so I mean, as much as I pontificate and have a lot to say and want to be helpful on the national level and plan to be present for chairs, DNC stuff, I also want it to work at home too. So like, I care about what happens in Ohio. I want to help people and the institution in Ohio to thrive and succeed. I've dedicated my life to it and my adult life to it in so many ways. And so I'm not going to like turn my back on it now. And I think, again, there's a real opportunity to make something cool and to try new stuff and to do things a new way. And you have to encourage that process along.
I couldn't agree more. Like, I went to an event last night, Twig, with our boy Eric Waldo.
I love Eric Waldo.
He's the greatest. But it was, Eric is the president and CEO of the largest college scholarship program for DC students. And 18% of DC kids that go to college graduate within 6 years. 18%. And,
it's devastating.
It's devastating, but it's also the kind of thing where if you're watching, I've gotten a lot of DMs and texts, which is so fun and great for people to be like, love your podcast. Like, what can I do? But I agree with Carri. There's just so much to be done right in your neighborhood. And I would encourage folks, like my sister-in-law ran for Democratic Central Committee in Philly and she won. And she's fucking incredible. And she's a doctor and she's amazing, right? Like the opportunity here, what was so beautiful when Donald Trump won the first time was...
We should talk about that, by the way. It should be our next topic. Go ahead.
There was just this beautiful organic moment, right? Obviously the Women's March and Run for Something and all of these incredible organizations sprouted organically, right? And there were more women that ran for office than in history, more young women that ran for office in history.
Yeah.
People like AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, like all those people were among those people that were inspired to run. because they felt like if this motherfucker can win, like
anybody can win.
Are you fucking kidding me? And we need, what I'm worried about, Carri Twigg, is the culture. The culture is not great. The culture's not good. It's not looking great because the number of people, figures, public figures, and also people with platforms, and I'm not going to name names, people with podcasts and other things, whose immediate reaction upon the election ending was, oh, thank God this election is over so we can get back to regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah.
You know? Thank God this election is over. I don't want to have to worry about fate of our country anymore. I need to get back to the gossip around, you know, whether Jennifer Aniston is fucking Barack Obama or whatever it is. Like, I don't like, by the way, I just learned that for the first time. That's like a thing. That's a thing.
Dude,
by the way.
I know it's a thing. I know it's a thing.
But do you know what I mean? Like, we're in a place right now where it could be really bad for millions and millions and millions of people. And it's like fucking Aldous Huxley in A Brave New World. People are just going to like go back to their phones and scroll and just pretend like none of this shit is happening, you know?
Yeah, but first of all, human beings are not good with hypotheticals. I think we know that.
True.
So like, let them chill until it actually starts, and then hopefully they'll get engaged. I mean, you have to hustle and float. There's have to be feast with famine. Like it's not good for your immune system. Like it's not good for your nervous system to be high key about this stuff all the time.
Good point.
And so I think if you give people a chance to rest and a chance to breathe, it actually makes the stuff he does seem to get garner the outrage it deserves.
Yeah.
If you're paying attention all the time and your cortisol is like constantly at an 8, 9, 10, when he does something, there's no delta. There's no you know, so like you got to let people calm down, go do your thing, go watch sports or NASCAR or whatever. And then you can get back up to a 10 when the moment actually calls for it and the threat is present as opposed to being hypothetical. So I think for like the broad audience, you have my permission, if not Brad's. Like if you're general pop, like just go chill, like go do your thing. You should go take a nap, enjoy time with your family. Don't think about it for a little bit, talk about other stuff, but I'm going to ring your doorbell or like call you back in when there's something for you to do other than panic or like doom scroll or, you know, read autopsies that don't matter for you. 90% of the news that we consume like has nothing to do with us and has no relevancy, and you don't actually need to know. And I think if we all we're a bit more conscientious about our media diets, then we would be able to appropriately summon outrage and disgust at more appropriate times, as opposed to being like, I actually don't have any more of that left because I spent it all. Like I spent it all hearing that Matt Gaetz is going to be the incoming attorney general. So like, I'm actually out of juice for this thing that is real and I'm supposed to show up for. And like, I don't know. I want to push back off the hook, but
I want to push back a little bit because I'm fired up here. Because here's the thing. We don't say that to Mets fans. New York Mets fans, we lose every year. We have our heart broken every fucking year.
It's called the off season.
Yeah, but I'm still reading the reports. We need to get Soto from the Yankees. We need to get Juan Soto. Like, it doesn't stop. It's 365 days, mother lovers. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that there is space for all of it. I think there is space in your heart and your diet for knowing what celebrity gossip, what fashion trend is happening, what funny TikTok is on your reel, And also knowing that RFK Jr. was just appointed the Secretary of Homeland Security, or not
Okay,
Homeland
can I
Security,
draw a
HHS.
distinction? Can I
Okay.
draw a distinction that I think is important?
Yeah.
I think that you have a beef with people with platforms, and I'm sort of talking about audiences. So I think you're right.
I want it to be both, though.
All right,
I think we have to address both simultaneously.
Okay. I think that one of the things that's broken is that there's very few places to consume political information or content that doesn't feel hysterical. And not in the fun way, but like doesn't feel so threatening and like just Chicken Little, the sky is falling, the world is on fire. And I think that people with, to the point of your rage earlier, there are very few people who understand how to talk about politics because of the way it's been modeled, because of the way it's been covered, and because of the way we haven't taught it very much.
Yeah.
People don't know how to talk about it in a way that's like chill and interesting and elegant and an organic extension of whatever they're talking about anyway. Like you could be talking to me about, I don't know, Skims or something stupid. And like, I can make that into a political issue. I don't have to mention Democrats or Republicans, but that's because it's like, I'm an expert, right?
Great product.
These people
my wife really gives it 2 thumbs up. Great product. I think. I don't know.
We don't
need to talk about the product.
We don't mess with, anyway.
We don't fuck with the Kardashians. Is that what we're saying?
Anyway, I mean, God bless them. They're actually very sweet, but it's like, they are symbolic of a larger cultural issue.
No. Look, we're gonna do a whole episode on the Kardashians. We're gonna spend a whole episode.
Oh, good.
Yeah, sorry.
So, I think that we need to bring more people into podcasting, punditry, journalism that can interweave politics into their conversations about whatever it is that they're talking about, so that it doesn't necessarily always feel like it's siloed in this own separate category. And I think that's how you then train an audience to ingest it better, right? It's like I think there's an audience for it. People care about what's going on in the world. People care about what's going on around them. I think people are also tired of being stressed out, though. Like, life is hard enough. So the escapism that they feel and that they go to their entertainment properties for, I think you can sort of still weave some politics in that if it's still entertaining and not, like, I watch Rachel, like, I'm not a big Rachel Maddow fan. She's super talented. I get it. But every time I watch that show, I'm just like, what? Like, she's getting me so jacked up about stuff. And it's like, it's actually not what I want. Like, I don't want to feel jacked up about. I'm on board. Like, can we actually do a little bit of, like, can I get some like Walter Cronkite dispassionate coverage for a second? Or like something really fun.
Good point. It's a really good point. I would also say, though, it's the first time in history that MSNBC beat CNN in election night ratings. I think that Steve Kornacki should get a very big fucking bonus, because I think
it's like all Kornacki. I love Steve Kornacki.
So much of that is God bless fucking
Steve
the King
Kornacki.
King Kornacki. But
someone send me that T-shirt, please.
Yeah, God bless. But I will say this. I agree with everything you said. I think that this pod, because Twigg and I, we've talked about, again, for folks who've been on this journey, which is mostly just Carri's parents, not my parents.
They're in and out. They are in and out.
We started doing this for fun and for our own emotional regulation, like my own emotional regulation, or just like feelings. Just needed someone to talk to about something that, and maybe this is like a really bad way to end the pod on, but I do feel like, because Twigg was like, we need to keep it light. It's like,
did I say that?
No. You're just saying, like, Rachel can sometimes be like a lot. Like, Rachel, you know what I mean?
No, she's very, like, my eye will twitch.
Yeah,
watching her show. She's me
into
such a state.
And I think that it will be interesting because, one, we're going to keep doing the pod, which is very exciting. And we're going to keep We've not figured out where we're going to have a home for it. We're talking to a bunch of people, which is so exciting. But the major reason why is because I am very worried. Like, so many people listen to our podcast during the election because I think that people wanted to know who's going to win, who's going to lose. You know what I mean? Like, the horse race of it all. And I actually am more worried about what's going to happen now.
Well, here's the thing. I think we have now been on this pod's maybe already an hour, but there's two major things we haven't talked about.
Okay. What are the two things?
One is so we talked a little bit about what the general public can do. I also think I'm really curious, like, what the activist class is doing. Like, I know the Women's March is putting together the People's March. Like, what is it? What's actually happening? I'm curious about what you're hearing, what's being organized in DC. And, I can tell you some of the things that I've been talking to people about. And then also, I think that people are going to be paying a lot of attention to the choices that Donald Trump is making around who's going to be in his administration. And you and I are in a unique position to actually break down what those jobs are. It's it's one thing to be like, he picked Matt Gaetz to be attorney general. Matt Gaetz isn't qualified. It doesn't matter what the job is, right?
He's not going to get confirmed, though, Twigg.
I know.
I don't know if you just saw. He's not going to get confirmed. So, but yeah.
But even just the audacity of that is so amazing. But what do you think? 4% of Americans can accurately describe what HHS does? You know what I mean?
So I think that's right. Well, but we forget how many people, like my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, are doctors. I mean, there are a lot of people and researchers, medical researchers. And I mean, I think that there are a lot of people who work in America who, this is also like the Department of Education conversation. But
this is what I'm saying. It's like, but even if all right, fine. If you know what HHS does, do you know what Department of Ed does? Do you know what labor's in charge of? Do you know what EPA actually does? Right.
Yeah.
So I think us talking a little bit more too, and maybe this is next episode. It's just like, what are these? Like, what does the American government actually do? So we now have the Department of Bros, government efficiency. Like, okay, is there any merit to that? What does that actually mean? How does that work? Why do bureaucracies exist? And actually, here's some of the upsides of them.
Did you see the acronym?
No, what is it? Is it boobs?
It's the Department of Government Efficiency, which is Doji, the Doji coin, which Elon Musk owns. And has skyrocketed since Doge, I don't even know, fucking know. It's all bullshit. Has been announced yesterday. And Elon posted it and snickered, and then Dogecoin went skyrocketed
through the roof. Oh, the okie doke is in town. It's so crazy. So talking about stuff like that, about what that actually means, I think so much of it gets really abstract in this moment.
Yeah.
And so us taking some time to just bring it down into its concrete implications, I think is probably useful. Maybe not. Tell us in the comments if that's an absolute snooze fest.
The other thing I think you and I also talked about was, you may be surprised, but Carri and I are interested in things that are adjacent to politics.
Totally.
I think that if Kamala Harris were to have won, I think that a lot of our pod going forward would have been more adjacent things.
Yeah.
because the procedural work of transition, God bless Johannes, who was running transition. That's a bummer.
Did you know I had a crush on Johannes back in the day? Have I talked about that?
I'm glad you're saying it on the podcast.
I know.
God bless his wife.
Yeah, no, very happy he's married. I said back in the day.
Yeah. I love Yo is the greatest. He's the greatest. Yeah. But all this to say, we thought, well, look, if Kamala wins, there's going to be a lot of weeks where not a lot is happening. Donald Trump just won, and not to be alarmist, speaking of our last podcast about being alarmist, everyone should be very worried and concerned about a Donald Trump presidency. And I don't want you to be like, I'm so scared and I don't know what's going to happen. The reason why I'm saying this is because it's going to get weird and it's going to get ugly, and he's going to test the limits of the public, our government, like the guardrails, our culture, like everything is going to be tested. Like he's going to test to see, it's like stress tests, the term used in finance. You know what I mean? Like he's going to see what he can get away with. And I think that that's my biggest worry right now, is that there is a hunger among cultural elites, I'll use that term, to just get back to normal. Everyone wants to get back to normal. But we're not in normal anymore. This is just the reality now. So you can't go back to normal. Actually, going back to normal is an abdication of responsibility to...
Oh, but which Americans love, which elites love. First of all, Brad, read the room. What do elites love more than abdicating responsibility for everything and anything? No. Be serious. Okay? Be serious.
Like, there should just be more. Like, Twigg and Jenkins, I'm so excited. I'm hoping, right? Like, I was looking at the numbers of people listening, and it was like, it's like a straight line of people being excited. And what I hope is that people keep listening, and that the election's over, sure, but the things that are about to happen, the U.S. Department of Education, I posted this thing to my story, and the number of people that responded to me aghast.
I know, dude. I know.
Aghast. I posted a very simple graphic. It just said, the U.S. Department of Education is the primary funder of all special education and disability education in all 50 states.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump ran on closing down the U.S. Department of Education, but no one knew what that meant.
This is what I'm saying. Bro, that's the point I'm making.
Yes, no, I'm with you. I'm just saying, like,
I got a great text message today I'm going to read.
Okay, great.
From someone I haven't talked to in a couple years. He said, I've been loving, long time no message, I know, but I've been loving Twigg and Jenkins and wanted to let you know. Quotes, too old and too large for Leo had me dying.
No.
But beyond that, it's such a refreshing change from my other political listen. Insert podcast name. I won't repeat here. You guys have insider knowledge and genuine enthusiasm, and you're both so listenable. I hope for more. Take care out there. Aww. Isn't that sweet? Thanks, Taylor. It's
beautiful.
An ex-boyfriend's ex-best friend. Anyway, but I don't know why I always include unnecessary personal details.
It's the best part about the podcast.
Yeah, it's what people come for.
I was thinking our next pod should just be about all of our former relationships, just like an hour and a half. You know what I mean? Like people would be very interested in that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Riveting. But I think one of the reasons why we've been successful, and you and I actually haven't had this conversation, is because it is people are curious about this stuff, but the way that it's presented is often just so unwatchable. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm going to have an aneurysm from watching an hour of news. Like that why is this happening? And I think it's why Ezra Klein is so calm. He's basically like an ASMR, YouTube star. And it's like, I think if we can keep figuring out how to have a sense of humor about all of this, because life is always funny. I think if we can continue to share information that's real and important and we should prioritize it, but with some perspective and knowledge, there's going to be plenty for us to talk about. I know that I don't want to live in outrage every moment of the day for the next for the next 4 years. And I don't want to have to stick my head in the sand, but I also don't want to be like in this cycle that is purely dictated by Donald Trump and Elon Musk's kind of id. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to live on their timeline, but I also don't want to pretend like nothing's happening either. And so, like, striking that balance, and then you can keep me riveted with whatever is going on with the Mets.
Well,
And
it's
we'll
the
be all
Mets,
right.
but it's also, you know, again, and I'm not holding any thing that I listened to responsible, but I was alarmed by, and I think that in their defense, because I always like to defend people that I disagree with, because I don't know, that's just how I roll. In their defense, we've done Trump before, right? So I think in their defense, it's like, well, yeah, Donald Trump's been president. Like, the country didn't fall to shit. You know, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
We're going to get back to square one. And we can get into it more on the next pod, which is a great point, which are these appointments have nothing to do with any level of expertise or mission of the department or agency. It's the exact opposite.
To be fair, it's like he kind of tried last time. Like, he kind of capitulated to...
He did.
To people who were like, bro, all right, you got to be president. It's time to be a grown up. You got to take this seriously. Like, this is like, shit can break here. Like, you gotta try, you know? That's all gone.
But this time around, he's like, you know what?
Cowboy.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to appoint
whatever
someone
I want
to the EPA that fucking hates the environment.
Yeah.
Like, literally. Like,
yeah,
Lee Zeldin dude, like, this dude, his whole gambit is like, how do we destroy the environment? How do we give as much power to the oil companies, to the auto industry, to as many companies as possible? How do we remove... The name of the agency is the Environmental Protection Agency. He went on Fox News immediately after being appointed and talked about how he was going to remove all the protections from the agency. So that's just one example.
He got checked by the Exxon CEO.
Yes.
The Exxon CEO was like, homie, like, slow down, slow your roll. Like, that kind of chaos is actually not welcome, because you're going to roll all this back, but we're still going to have to solve these problems. So you're just making it harder.
Yeah, because I mean, the oil companies, the auto companies, they already have 10-year plans, right? They already have 10-year plans of 10, 20-year plans of like, yes, we do need to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels because they're fucking ruining the world.
Yeah.
And this motherfucker's like, nah, bro.
Nah. Burn it to the ground.
All gone. So there's a version of that for every department and agency. So when you see someone appointed, just Google them and you'll see that that person, actually, their life's work is to get rid of that department or agency, or skeptical of. And so Carri, Twigg, and I, we'll I think this episode maybe was not as fun as some of our others, because, you know, obviously I'm going through a lot of stuff. I think it was still very fun. But, like, I agree with Carri. Like, we do need to keep our head about us. I think we do need to laugh in the midst of chaos and fascism. And I do think the other piece that I do want to focus in on the rebuilding of the Democratic Party, because that's the piece that, from the responses I'm getting online, that people are actually very interested in. And
all right, so we'll do a breakdown of the cabinet and of the shadow cabinet.
We should
the
do,
government
we should do
and
a
the
breakdown
shadow
of
government.
Yeah, like
next
all
week.
of the people running for DNC chair.
Totally, I'm down. I'm with it.
What that means, who they are, like what they bring to the table, and how Twigg and I would reconstitute the Democratic Party, because
that'll be fun. I'll think about that a little bit more.
Yeah,
and
like
so
what would we
know
want?
the bylaws are online. Like, you can look it up. You can look up how the election actually works, I think, on democrats.org.
I think that's true. We tried, Carri and I tried, we were thinking of doing a public event, a Twigg and Jenkins public event. I realized that we like teased it on one of our last podcasts.
Did we?
We did. We're like, email this address. We're gonna have a party.
Oh, hilarious.
And then we never, because obviously
because there's nothing to celebrate.
Donald Trump won, so we didn't.
Well, we should still do it. So we'll find a different date. We should do like a live show.
Yeah.
We should do a live show in DC. That'd be so fun.
We should do a live show in DC. We can even do it here. There's like a lot of room in the DC studio.
Yeah. And then and I'll be so I'm coming next week to be discussed. I'll be there the first week of December for Kennedy Center honors.
Amazing.
And then I guess I'll come maybe back in January for the People's March.
Are you going to come back for it?
Well, I don't know. We'll discuss. We can cross that bridge when we get there. And then for the DNC meeting in February. So that's every month.
Is that February meeting with the new chair, or is that the election for the
election of the new chair?
Oh, wow. February. Okay. So we've got, I've got like a couple of months, a few months before the next DNC chair election. I will say the last pod, I was like, we love you guys. I will also say that I agree with Carri. Like, if folks need to just touch grass and not be involved in politics for a while, that's cool. But also, and you're right, I was getting a little angry at some people with platforms. A little bit.
Not undeservedly.
Like, you can't pretend like this shit's not happening. And I know you have to promote your movie or your music album or whatever it is, but the silence is deafening. And,
I mean, if Billie Eilish is still talking about it from the stage, so can you. You know what I mean?
Fucking love Billie Eilish.
Yeah, me too.
She's so great.
All right, homie.
Twig, love you, bro.
Love you.
We did it. I don't know. How long was this pod? This is a long one.
I know.
I gotta go home to dinner.
We really could Rogan. It's like, you're like, how does he talk for 3 hours and then like look at us go?
It's not that hard. The one thing I will say about the Rogan thing, he and both Theo were going on and on about how Kamala should have gone on their pods.
They're not wrong.
And here's the thing. Hot take. She should still go on.
I agree.
She should go on now.
Yeah, I agree.
Get on there. Get in there. Get in there, Kamala. Go on the podcast now.
God, can you imagine the comments on that video?
No, but I think it's necessary. I think it'd be really cathartic too.
No, I think she should. I completely agree. I think it would be such a baller move.
It'd be good. Twig, love you.
Love you.
I hope LA weather's treating you well.
It's so nice.
And
see you soon.
I'll see you next week.
All right. Bye, honey.
Peace.